Jim Norton is ending the Chip Chipperson podcast. He said this last week on Jim and Sam. The reason why I'm talking about it so much later after he said this is because I just wanted to confirm it because it's one of those things where he's like, I'm thinking about it. So I wanted to look into some things, and I can pretty much guarantee, yeah, he's going to end the Chip podcast. So Jim Norton said that he was thinking about scaling back the Chip podcast starting at the beginning of next year. So basically, like in a month in January, and maybe only do it once every quarter. So like 4 times a year. And that's basically just not even a podcast anymore. That's Jimmy just doing a Chip thing 4 times a year. So as you know, right now the Chip podcast is every Sunday. So that's, you'll probably do it on a Sunday still, but just 4 times a year. Now, the reason why he is ending this is this isn't anything he wants to do, but looking at the analytics and everything, financially, he has to not do the Chip podcast anymore. And if he scales it back to once every year, he'll still, well, he might actually have a chance of making or breaking even. Because when he started out the Chip podcast, he wasn't making that much money. But now he's at a point with the Chip podcast to where it's costing him money. Which is why he's going to be scaling it back. The views have dropped way off. Understandably so. And it's not that the Chip podcast gets terrible views or anything. It gets like 35,000 to 40,000 views every time he drops one. It all depends on the guest, too, because it could drop to like 25,000. The problem is, and he tried cleaning up the Chip show a little bit, not swearing as much, because I guarantee you every single Chip podcast he uploaded has gotten and stayed yellow badged, which means limited or no ads run on it. 35,000 views to 45,000 is good if it's you just like doing a YouTube channel. But with the Chip podcast, like there's a studio being rented. There's people working in the back and there's guests. All of that costs money. So Jim Norton probably has to pay whoever his co-host is, probably at least pay for the guest to get there to be on the Chip thing. He has to pay whoever's running it, pay who's ever uploading it. Now, I don't know the whole, I think he's done with the Riotcast deal still. So now I think it's just him doing it and not Bob Kelly paying for any of this. So, yeah, it's a complete financial situation as to why he can't do Chip anymore. And Anthony hasn't been on in a while because he has the longest case of like bronchitis ever. But, yeah, so personally, like I've always said, I was never really a fan of the Chip podcast, even though I went to the live one in Boston. I like the character Chip, but I can't handle it in hour increments of the Chip podcast. I think it's terrible, and I think little like minute Chip joke on the show is good. So I personally don't mind this. But let me know your thoughts in the comments and if you will miss the Chip podcast.